Am I the asshole for asking an old woman not to pick our lavender as she walks past our house?
There's an old woman that walks by our house with her grandchildren. We don't have a fence between our plants and the pedestrian path.
The woman picks our lavender and then encourages her grandchildren to pick the lavender too. I had enough today and I went out and said in a calm tone of voice, "Sorry, would you mind not pulling our lavender out?" She then said, "Are you serious? It doesn't harm the plant."
I replied, "That's all well and good, but well, it's just disrespectful as it's our property."
She then said, "Well, I have some advice for you. If you had cut it back last year, it would have grown better. You haven't done that and it hasn't grown well at all," and then made a cheeky smirk and walked on. I was sort of flummoxed at that reply and closed the door. I have social anxiety and don't like confrontation. I wish I said more.
Makes me so angry that she feels she has the right to do that.
She may be right in that it doesn't harm the plant, but it's just the principle of it. And I can't get over her rude reply about how we aren't growing it correctly. Can hardly focus on my work. I'm just pacing about with irritation, tears of joy.
Edit. I'll add that it took a year and a half of it happening a few times a week to get to the point where I said something.
Not the asshole if there are a lot of flowers and they are pushing to the sidewalk. Yeah, whatever.
Not something I'd do, but not the end of the world either, especially with a common, easily propagating flower.
But if you get caught, you get caught.
You don't smirk. You don't sass. You don't huff or bluster.
You just apologize, wave, and say that your flowers are so pretty. And then you wave and say, "No worries," and you go about living in a civilized society. Definitely not the asshole. I live in a city and most of the row houses have small front gardens that border the sidewalk. Mine is a brick flower bed about 1.5 feet tall.
It was a mess when I bought my house, but I cleaned it all out, planted hydrangeas and other things. Now a few years later, the hydrangeas are gorgeous and have grown together beautifully. People stop and take photos of them. Earlier in the summer, I found a lady on the sidewalk just clipping away my beautiful blooms. I said, "Ma'am, those are not yours, please stay out of my garden."
She looked baffled.
"They're right here on the sidewalk. In an elevated bed, in front of my house, and what would be left if the hundreds of others who walk by each day all cut themselves a bouquet?"
My friend has a unique tree that is hard to grow in our zone. It has pretty flowers and every spring people come into their yard to pick them.
Whenever she tells people to stop, they counter with, "It's just one flower." Her response is, "You're the 10th person today to pick just one flower, so please don't." Most people get it.
Is she picking a sprig or pulling it out?
If she is picking off just a bit to enjoy the scent, I would let it pass.
It won't hurt the plant or destroy its beauty. And don't forget to cut it back.
The best time to prune lavender is usually immediately after the plant stops flowering, usually in late summer to early fall. Don't prune lavender too late in the season, as plants pruned right before frost are most susceptible to cold damage.
You are not the asshole.
If she is consistent with her walks, it sure would be a shame if your sprinkler happened to turn on right when she tried to steal your lavender again.
Not the asshole.
Screw all the people saying it's no big deal.
I struggle to grow anything in my climate, and if I saw someone picking my lavender there would be some much stronger words. Also, in colder, drier climates, picking and trimming in fall rather than early spring can cause the plant to die over the winter by removing protective layers, so she could very well be harming your plant. This lady's entitlement is wild. If she wants lavender to pick, she can grow her own. Am I the asshole for telling my sister she doesn't have a family, she has a circus?
The other day my sister, 36 female, was complaining to me that her family is chaos and she doesn't understand why everyone can't get along and why they never have a truly good moment while everyone together.
I listened to her for around 20 minutes and she told me I was being quiet. My response was that she clearly needed to vent and I didn't want to interject.
That was mostly true, but I also think my sister is a little insane for thinking she'd get to have a nice neat little family given the craziness in her family.
For context, my sister had her first child at 18, my nephew Shane, 18 male. She dated Shane's dad for a while and found out when Shane was 1 that her boyfriend had another girl pregnant and so they broke up.
My sister and the other mother both got arrested for fighting. And she swore she would never let that woman or her child near Shane.
She got married at 21 and had 2 more kids, Katie, 15 female, and Rye, 13 male. She filed for divorce straight after Rye was born and her ex-husband is nowhere in sight since.
A year later she met another man, who had a baby with someone.
My niece Lily, 12 female, is not my sister's bio child but she raises her as her own, though unofficially since she's not adopted.
Katie got married again, had Milo, 9 male, with that husband and got pregnant with Sage, 7 female, while married but her ex-husband is not the father. Her youngest bio, so far, is Niall, 5 male, and his father is not in the picture either.
My sister is married again. Her husband has 2 kids from his first marriage and 2 kids from his second marriage. He also has a child in his life who is not his biological kid. Doesn't get along with his biological kids. But he treats this child like his own. The household has many complicated relationships and divided loyalties. There are complications with some of the other parents involved and other children involved. It's too long and complicated to get involved in.
But even among my sister's children, they are not all cohesive close siblings and some resentments exist for one reason or another.
Anyway, Lily was venting to me. She said nobody she knows has a family so incapable of getting together as hers. She asked me why I thought that was and I said very blended families are more complex.
She told me there are people with bigger blended families than hers.
I told her bigger doesn't always mean having as many others involved as hers.
Then she said again they're all a family though and they act like they don't want to be, and that's when I said probably because it's more of a circus than a family. My sister told me that was really unkind and untrue, that they are a family, even if others can't see it.
She told me she expects an apology from me before we can speak again. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole, dear God. I had less trouble following genealogy of Elden Ring characters than your sister's lineage.
I am giving you the not the asshole verdict because, although your comment could be understood as rude, her life is obviously about perpetuating same mistakes and having same outcome at the cost of kids' happiness in the end.
I know someone who did that to his kids and their kids can't get along because they made a circus out of their lives. Not the asshole, you mean to tell me that a revolving door of baby daddies doesn't make for a stable family dynamic? I think she needs a different hobby. Not the asshole. She pressed you to explain yourself and you told her what you were thinking.
In these sorts of conversations, you can't expect people to choose their words carefully. They just say what comes to mind.
If she didn't want to know, she shouldn't have asked. Why did you name 2 of the kids Katie and Lily then use those names again as if it was your sister's name? This story is confusing enough as it is. Sorry, I said your family was a circus.
But you have turned your hoo-ha into a clown car, so what the fuck do you expect? Don't apologize.
Her family dynamics is definitely that of a circus. Not the asshole op.
Am I the asshole for letting my daughter eat whatever she wants? I, 45F, have a 15F daughter.
She is extremely active on her school's dance team.
They have practices 8 hours a week, and according to her Fitbit she gets 100 plus active minutes a day on average. Because of this, I basically let her eat whatever she wants, packs her own lunches, buys school lunch, eats whatever snacks she wants, eat or not eat the family dinner, all her choice. Because of the long practices, she usually eats a normal-sized lunch, a large snack, and a large dinner every day. However, my husband, her stepfather, has told me that I need to be enforcing healthier eating habits because she's getting chubby. She's always been on the curvier side, but she's a size medium or a size 8 in most clothing items. She's 5'4" and 150 pounds.
He told me that she's going to end up obese if I don't fix it now, and that's probably the cause of her knee problems. She's hypermobile in her knees, so they'll randomly buckle backwards and get a mild sprain. I've ignored his concern on the matter, because I believe my daughter is fine the way she is, and no doctor has brought up needing to lose weight, and that the knee problems are just an unfortunate genetic component. Both me and her father have similar issues. Does this make me the This sounds more like a question for your pediatrician and other medical professionals. Exercise doesn't negate junk food. Eating a lot isn't a problem if she's burning it off, it's more a matter of what she's eating than how much. Too much sugar or fat or processed foods can still cause health issues, even if you aren't readily gaining weight. No judgment for now, since we don't know what the daughter is eating. I would talk to the doctor and my dad cooked my meals in high school. They were all around packed with protein. My snack was a peanut butter and jelly. Lol, I did water polo and spent 4 hours in the pool daily.
My dad was pretty strict on what I was eating, but not how much.
He wanted me to build healthy eating habits.
Which I am grateful for because once I stopped swimming, I knew what I could eat.
I went crazy freshman year though. I think it's a parent job to show your teenagers how to cook and what's a good choice and a bad choice. Those eating habits lead to adult choices. So as long as she's eating pretty healthy meals and you have talked to the doctor about her knees, then you are good in my book, but does that matter? Rolling on the floor laughing tears of joy upside down face. For everyone saying she can eat whatever she wants. This is why most of America is obese. No one has taught them healthy eating habits. I'm not saying this girl is fat by any means, but it's not a bad idea to teach healthy eating habits if she is in fact gaining weight. Not the asshole, sounds like she's active and eating the nutrients she needs. And for someone who's that active and has a curvy body type, that's in no way heavy. Stand up for your daughter and don't let him say that shit to her. Not the asshole, however your husband may have a point. His way of phrasing it sucks, but 15 years old, 5 feet 4 inches and 150 seems a little on the high side to me. I would be keeping an eye on it. I'm 5 feet 5 inches and have always been reasonably fit but not what anyone would call skinny. I'm 138 and 63 years old. At her age I was strong AF, athletic and 125 pounds. 2 hours of practice a day isn't all that much, fairly typical for high school sports, and there's 3 more days each week. Might need to pay a little closer attention to food choices and what's in the normal lunch and snack. Am I the asshole for ripping up my neighbor's vegetable garden? I own a house that is close to other homes. Each home is 10 or so featuring apart, but we all have backyards. Recently I noticed a tomato garden growing on the side of my home. The back of my house sticks out a little more than the front. Oh, that kind of shape, and the back goes right up to my property line. The garden was on the side of the smaller part of my house, but still technically on my yard. Then there's my neighbor's driveway, and their house. I just bought the house a little under a year ago, and don't know much about plants, so wasn't sure if it had to be planted or just grew on its own. I ignored it, but later sent a text to my landscaper about a few vines on that side of my home growing up my house. The landscaper came and removed everything, including the tomato plants. I'm not home when the landscaper comes, so just saw later that day. A few hours later, the neighbor came to my door upset that I removed them and asking for me to buy them organic tomatoes for the rest of the season or replace their plants with mature ones from Home Depot. I told them their plants shouldn't have been on my yard, and I have a landscaping sign in my yard. It shouldn't be my responsibility to make sure my landscaper doesn't take out plants that are in my yard and aren't mine. I'm wondering if maybe for the sake of keeping the peace I should just replace the plants though? Am I the asshole for ripping out their plants? As much as it hurts my heart to rip out a perfectly good tomato plant, you're not the asshole for doing so on your own property. Not the asshole. I told them their plants shouldn't have been on my yard, and I have a landscaping sign in my yard. It shouldn't be my responsibility to make sure my landscaper doesn't take out plants that are in my yard and aren't mine. Exactly. Why would they expect you to reimburse them because they planted in your yard? It doesn't sound like you even knew what the plants were. I went through a similar thing with a massive flower garden of my neighbors after buying my house. The neighbors were together for like 20 years and apparently had agreements. After a few conversations about property lines getting me nowhere, I bit the bullet and had a survey done. The flower garden and landscaping bricks were on my property by 6 feet. I had to get the township involved to get them to understand. They finally had it removed and I promptly installed a privacy fence. 9 years later they are still bitter over it lol. Not the asshole. It's fine if the neighbor is bummed, but if it was a mistake now they know where to not plant things, and if it wasn't they know it won't be tolerated. As a plant guy, I'd probably have spoken to the neighbor about it before. You did realize they were tomatoes in sentence 2. Nowhere at any home I've owned in 30 years has there been a question about who owns what. I'd simply have asked the neighbor in passing about them. Legally, there would appear to be no responsibility on your end, but it's not the best way to make friends. What was their response when you pointed out they planted tomatoes on your property?